Hello and welcome to episode 42 of Stitched in Sweden. I'm Maria, your host, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as mmonska. The show notes for this week's episode and past episodes can be found on the blog, which is stitchedinsweden.blogspot.com. And you can join us over on Ravelry if you're interested in, just seeing what people are talking about on the group thread. The group is also called Stitched in Sweden. So today I will talk a little bit about this week in Stockholm, some projects that I've been working on, one finished object which was basically finished last time, and I will also talk about all the upcoming projects that have been, that I've been dreaming of knitting when I haven't had time to knit. So first I wanted to say thank you to all of you who gave some suggestions in the Ravelry group about places to go in Copenhagen. We will be heading there next week, and I'm looking forward to checking out some yarn shops and restaurants and cafes that you guys recommended. So that was really great to hear from you on that. And of course I'll let you know how that went when we come back. But otherwise, this week in Stockholm has been really busy for me. It's approaching the end of another 5-week period, so my course is wrapping up, which means papers and assignments and exams and lots of that not fun stuff. But I was able to get in some fun things this week, including meeting up with a new knitting friend. She watches the podcast and contacted me to see if I wanted to meet up, and we did. So we actually got together twice this week and sat for a while, did a little bit of knitting, but mostly talking about knitting, and it was a lot of fun. So it's really nice to meet knitters in real life and find other people who are enthusiastic about yarn and patterns, because of course sometimes, well, I think sometimes Thomas is not so interested in hearing about all of those sorts of things. Whatever. Anyway, very nice to meet a new knitting friend. She showed me her knitting journal, which I found very inspiring, and I would like to get back to working on mine. I haven't entered anything in it in a while, but this is my knitting notebook that I have, and in here I've showed this before, but mostly I keep some tag note, some tags, maybe a little picture of the project. Let me go to a pattern that's not one of my design ideas. Here, for example, the Cybella pullover is a pattern by Carrie Bosich. Here you could see my notes, and I drew a little pencil picture. I have the tag from the yarn, and this is just a postcard, which I bought while I was knitting this pattern and decided to include it in. It's really random. On my Oshima pullover, I also drew a little picture, and I have some notes for reference on how to do the tubular cast on that I really liked, that was detailed in that pattern. So that's the last entry, I guess, that I have in this notebook, which was from October 1st of 2015. So a little while ago now, and I think it's fun to, keep track of knitting projects on Ravelry, which I do a lot, but I think it's also fun to put your tags somewhere. And my new knitting friend had a really nice big spiral bound notebook with blank paper in it that was big enough to include the printed out pattern pages. So she has all her notes from projects that she's knit before, and she has the notes on the patterns as well, so she can go back and remember what she did, which is really nice. For the most part, I look at my patterns on my iPad, so I don't print them out because I don't have a printer here. And I always have the intention to make notes on Ravelry, and I really like when people make notes on Ravelry because I find them useful sometimes, but I don't usually make that detailed of notes. I think part of the reason is because sometimes my notes come to me while I'm just knitting and I don't want to stop and turn on the computer and write them down. But also maybe because I just write them on a little sticky note and then that note gets lost or thrown away in the end. But I like the idea of having some place where everything is kept. She also had her swatches taped in there and little samples of the yarn. And it just, I don't know, it was really nicely laid out and pretty. So I don't know if I'll do that, but I thought it was a nice idea anyway. So yes, lots of schoolwork this week means not so much knitting time, which meant more time dreaming about knitting and being distracted by alluring yarn and wanting to buy all the yarn. I'll talk a little bit more towards the end of what patterns I've been dreaming about and buying yarn for. But now let's talk about what I've been working on, because I did, despite having a lot of stuff to do for school, get a little bit of knitting done. So I didn't work on what I didn't work on is my bread cloth. It's still in the same place that it was last week, and I still want to knit that. I think, yeah, no reason. It's just still in the same place. I did find the yarn, which I couldn't remember last week, is Kalinka, which is from Sweden, and it's Kalinka, I think is how you spell it. It's a 100% linen yarn, and it's really crunchy to work with. I'll just pull it up over here. It's in my project bag. It's this blue yarn, which is really, yeah, crunchy to work with, but it will be really nice once it is blocked. But yeah, that project is still in the exact same place as it was last week, which is, except for some more of the ball of yarn got unraveled for some reason, which is here. So, not that exciting. I did work a little bit on the socks that I'm knitting for a friend, and I just got a bit more of the second one finished. Whoops. But not that much. So I'm knitting these on the Knit Pro Zings, which I am enjoying. They, like I said last week, they're kind of weirdly blunt on the tips, but it just takes a little while to get used to them, and then they're nice to knit with. So here is the second sock, and the first one is right here, which I showed you before as well. I knit this top down with a tubular cast on and an Eye of Partridge heel flap, and then I did a Dutch, I think it's the Dutch heel turn. Can't remember now. Pretty sure it's called the Dutch heel turn, which is a square heel. And it's my new favorite heel turn. And then I just did, yeah, the toe. Decreases, like, I don't know what kind of toe that's called. It's just like a normal toe. Rounded toe with decreases on either side. This is Regia yarn, and it is color number 02-137, and I think it's called Jeans Blue. It's a nice, yeah, manly blue color, I think. So I will probably be knitting on these a lot more this week because we have presentations. In the upcoming week we have presentations in class, and that will be a good time to knit because I will be able to stay engaged, but I won't have to take a lot of notes. Perfect. So I also worked a little bit more on the Create socks. I cast on the second sock, which is in my DPN cozy from Little Bobbins. You can see that really sweet little Valentine's cozy. And I really love these socks, and I can see myself casting on another pair directly after these are finished, but at the same time I sort of want to finish my sock projects so that I can cast on some sweaters, because that's really all at my upcoming, what I want to knit is all sweaters. So yeah, I don't know, it's crazy. But these are the Create socks. This is a pattern by Rachel Coopy, and I showed you the first one that I had finished last week, right here. These are knit top down, as you can see. They have a nice twisted rib on basically the whole back part and on the cuff. And they just have a nice, pretty simple lace pattern that goes down the top of the foot and the front of the leg. And I cast these on, the second one on, just a couple days ago. So that's been speeding along. I did have a little hiccup and I had to go back and rip out part of it, but it wasn't a big deal. And now it's ready again to knit on. So I will probably work on this a bit this afternoon. This is the Wool Barn Smooth Sock, which I think is my favorite base from Maya at the Wool Barn. And the color is Old Romance, which is a nice light pink with, yeah, darker speckles in it. And on the heel and toes I have used Zazu yarns in the Rusty Chocolate color. So I'm hoping that the second sock, that I weighed the yarn correctly and the second sock will match up with the first one, because yeah, there's basically no yarn to spare with this project. So my color work sweater is still on hold. I haven't knit any more of it from last week, and I think that it will be on hold for a little while until I have some time and brain space to think about what I want to do with it. I do want to continue knitting it, but I need to try it on again and just sort of think a bit more about what I need to do. So still on hold, and I'm not going to mention it again, I think, until I start working on it. Now, one of the projects that I have worked a bit on this week is a project that has been hibernating since probably April last year or something. And I gave a little preview of this on Instagram, and I know that some of you are excited to see this project come back, and that is the loose top, which is this pattern, if you remember. This is a pattern that was in the Pom Pom Quarterly magazine. Oh, sorry. Pom Pom Quarterly, this issue. I don't see the issue number. It doesn't say what issue number it is. Why does it not say what issue? Issue number 12, maybe? There's a 12 right here, so could be issue 12. But I have been, well, I worked on this top for a little while, and then I set it aside. I don't even know why I set it aside, except that it just kind of stopped being exciting to knit on. Here it is in the pattern book. You can see it's a pattern by Mare Stevens. And yeah, I knit a bit on it this week, which was nice. I just was sort of thinking about projects that I hadn't worked on in a while, and sort of thinking about revisiting some old whips. So I don't have that many works in progress that are lying around, but I do have a couple, and this was the main one, I guess. So I decided to pick this up, and I actually decided to, I picked this up and I brought it with me the first time that I met up with my friend, and I was telling her like why I wasn't working on it, and mostly it came down to the fact that I didn't wash this yarn before I started knitting with it. And this is the Holst Garn Super Soft 100% wool, and I've talked about this yarn before. It's the same yarn that I used to knit my succulent shawl, which is my pattern with the light blue yarn. It's a lace shawl. It's the same yarn as that. Now, when I knit the succulent shawl, I washed the yarn first because I had the experience of knitting it for this top, and I knew then that I didn't like the smell of the yarn and the sort of crunchy feel of it before it's washed. It sort of has this, yeah, it is like a crunchy feeling because it still has some of the spinning oil in it from when it was milled. And that's also where this smell comes from, which is this sort of oil smell, which I don't like. And it's really nice to knit with once it's washed, and the fabric is really nice after it's washed, but before then, I find it quite unpleasant to work with. So, when I started this top, I didn't know that. So I just started knitting straight from the ball, and it's kind of crunchy and not nice. Now, so I was with my friend, and she was like, well, why don't you just stop where you are and wash it? So I sort of did a half and half. I didn't wash the yarn, but I did wash the project. Now, if you see, there's a pretty distinct line right across the middle there, and that's the difference between the bottom, which is washed, and the top part, which is not washed. So the fabric just totally changes once it's washed and blocked. And I just blocked it while it was still on the needles. I let it soak in a sink of hot soapy water and really got the grease out that way. And then I just laid it to dry on sort of mesh drying rack that I have, with the needles still in it and everything. I didn't let the needles soak in the water. I sort of kept them out, and I also kept the balls of yarn out. But yeah, it worked really well. So this stitch marker here is where I was when I stopped working on this project in, April or whatever it was. And now I have knit a bit more. This is on the back part, and I've started doing the sleeves. It has a really interesting construction. We'll see how it goes. So far, the back has not been the most fun part because the contrast color for the little dots has to be broken at the end of each contrast row. So that's not so fun, and I will have a lot of ends on both sides to weave in once it's done, but I don't know. They don't happen, they happen like every fourth row or something with how I'm knitting it. The original pattern, they happen even less. But I had decided to do them more frequently because when I swatched for it with how the original pattern was, I wanted more frequent dots. So yeah, I knit them every fourth row instead of every 8th row, I think, or 6th row, I can't remember. But yes, so this is trucking along, and I got to the point on the back with only this much left of the main color. This is my second ball of the main color. And I was worried that I might, in fact, run out of yarn. If you remember, I knit a blue top, which was also knit out of this yarn in a sort of cornflower blue, which has a stockinette body and a lace panel on the top part, and it has a pretty deep v-neck. That pattern used like 2.1 balls of this yarn. So I was thinking I would get away with 2 of the main color because there was also this additional little bit of yarn added in with the contrast color. But then while I was thinking about it, there's a couple things why I think I will actually need more yarn than just 2 balls, because first of all, the blue sweater had much more waist shaping, so that, you know, loses a lot of fabric in the middle part, which needs more yarn. So, well, the blue one needed less yarn. This pink one doesn't have waist shaping, so it will need more yarn. That's one reason. Also because on the blue top, the whole top part is lace, which I think uses less yarn than a solid stockinette stitch. And I think that the sleeves, while they'll still be a cap sleeve on this pink top, they will use more yarn than the blue top did. So I decided to pick up another ball, and I went to the Makery with my friend, and I picked up another ball. Now, of course, when I originally bought this yarn, it was about a year ago, and there's no way that the color is going to be exactly the same. You can probably tell even there that I think this one looks a bit more red-pink. But it is what it is, and I think that while I still have this much of the yarn left, I will start to alternate skeins so that hopefully there will be not a drastic line from where the old yarn stops and where the new yarn begins. But that's what you get when you don't buy enough yarn for your project. So the moral of the story is always buy an extra ball, I guess. Okay, so my only finished object this week was pretty much finished last week, and that is the Starry Pants by Tina Haugland. And here they are with the drawstring in them. This was a I-cord that I knit and then put into the pants. Yeah, but these were basically finished last week, and you saw them, but they were a little bit damp, and I thought I would just show them to you again now when they're finished. I'm really happy with the fabric of, how the yarn turned out. This is Drops Cotton Merino in obviously this yellow color and white. The yarn information is on my project page. I thought I would mention a little tip for how to get the drawstring into the pants because I had never done a drawstring before and I wasn't totally sure how I would do that. Because of course when you are sewing with a drawstring or putting a drawstring into a project bag or something, sometimes you sew around the drawstring or it's a piece of ribbon that you can easily thread through or something like that. Anyway, I wasn't sure how I was going to get this pretty thick drawstring into the pants without, snagging them. Originally I was thinking that I could use a tapestry needle and thread the end of the drawstring while it still had the yarn end on it, I thought I could thread that all the way through, but I started doing that, and you know, the needle was getting caught on little threads as I went along, and that wasn't working. So I attached this little stitch marker just to the end of the drawstring like this, to give it something hard that I could then, yeah, just put in through, yeah, so that I could just take it and thread it through the hole and feel it all the way around. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Hopefully that makes sense, and it will help you if you are knitting these pants or need to put a drawstring in something else with knitted fabric. There we go. So that worked pretty well, and I could recommend that method if you, I don't know why I thought it, yeah, I don't know, whatever. I'm happy that these pants are done. I think they turned out really cute, and I'm excited to give them away. So that's it for what I've been working on this week. I am looking forward to spending the rest of today knitting and catching up on some podcasts, because I just submitted my final exam and my second draft out of 3 of my paper. So I thought I would take the rest of the day today, Friday, to enjoy some knitting, and I will likely be trying to finish up the Create socks first, and then I'll probably knit a bit on my loose top. Otherwise, what I have been dream knitting about all week and buying yarn for, and thinking about buying yarn for, are 5 different sweaters, like I mentioned before. So the first one is Herbarium, and this is a pattern by Nadia Cretin Leshend? I don't know how to say it. Sorry. But Herbarium is the pattern I mentioned last week. It has a lace panel. I mean, the front is lace overall, and then it has sort of dropped shoulders, a stockinette stitch back, and stockinette sleeves. And I bought some yarn for that I will show you when it comes in. The second pattern that I've been thinking about is the HAWSER, which is a pattern by Jared Flood. And this pattern didn't appeal to me at first. I didn't particularly love the really boxy shape of it, and I thought that, I don't know, to me it looked sort of like a sweater from the 90s or the 80s, more like early 90s, I guess. And the style just didn't appeal to me very much. But as I was looking through some of the projects, I found this one project that I will maybe insert a picture of here, which I really like, and I will sort of be following what I think she probably did. She doesn't have project notes, but I think making this project with a little bit less ease and having it be a little bit more fitted appeals to my style a bit more, and I think it makes a really nice sweater. So I've been thinking about that project too, and I am contemplating knitting this in Drops Cloud or Drops Air, which is, they call it a blow yarn or something, blown yarn. I don't really know exactly how it's made, but it's an alpaca merino polyamide blend. I think 70% alpaca, 7% wool, the rest acrylic basically. And they say that it's somehow blown into a tube, which makes the shape of the yarn. I don't really know how that works, but somehow it's not spun how yarn normally is. Not really sure. Anyway, I have seen a sweater knit with this yarn, and it looks really cozy and lovely, and I think it could be really nice for the HAWSER. So the cloud is the bulky or much thicker version of this, and Air I think is closer to a worsted weight. So it might work better for this pattern because the original was knit in Shelter, which is a worsted weight. So I will think about that. Otherwise, the other patterns I've been thinking about are the Wolf River. I still want to knit that, and I was gifted that pattern, which was really nice. So I don't have yarn for that yet, but I would like to think about what could work for that. And I think it could be, part of the reason why I haven't decided what yarn I want to knit that top with is because I know that some people have adjusted it to be knit with a lighter weight yarn, and I think the original is with a bulky or something. I like the idea of modifying it to a lighter weight yarn because I think that could make it a really nice spring top, because it also has a lace front, basically. I think the back also might be lace, but it's quite, yeah, airy. And it could be, I've seen some projects which are knit with a lighter yarn and with a yarn that has more drape, and it seems to make a really nice top. So I think that could be good for the cold spring and summer here. So yeah, that's another plan. The fourth sweater that I've been knitting in my head this week is the Tambourine, and this is the one on the cover of this issue of Pom Pom. And I liked this pattern when it came out. I think it will be, originally I actually swatched for this in Jamieson and Smith yarn in a basically cornflower blue. But now that I think about it, I think that this top could be really nice in a black yarn. Maybe even with a little bit of bamboo or something with quite a bit of drape, but still stretch. So maybe a merino bamboo blend or something. But I think it could make a nice sweater, a cropped sweater. You could see here she has, it's sort of a cropped sweater that she was wearing over a dress, and I think it could be nice over dresses or with skirts in the spring. And I've had a black cardigan before that had some detailing on the front, which I basically wore to death. I think it could even be nice. I don't know about this yet, but I think it could be even nice within the noops, like right around the inside of these circles, to include some glossy black beads. So I haven't decided about that yet. I have been looking for yarn for that one, but because I'm still not totally sure on the fiber content that I want, and also if I want to knit it in a lighter weight yarn, because the original is knit in a worsted weight, I think. So I might, or DK maybe, but I might want it to be more of a spring or summer evening cardigan, so I might want it in a lighter weight yarn. Finally, I've been thinking about the Japan sleeves, which is a pattern by Joji Locatelli, and I was gifted this pattern this week by a lovely viewer, which was a nice surprise, and it is a pattern that I've been looking at for a long time. It features lace panels along the tops of the sleeves and then stripes for the body. So yeah, I almost bought yarn for it earlier this week, but then I decided I probably should wait a little bit until I actually did some more knitting. So yeah, that will be maybe one for the future. But Joji Locatelli also, I think, has a new pattern collection with Vera Valimaki coming out, I believe, on February 18th. So their patterns are always beautiful, and who knows, there might be more projects to knit after that comes out. Anyway, I think that's about it for this week. I hope you have lots of time for knitting. I'm going to go make some tea and maybe some lunch and enjoy the rest of this snowy day knitting and catching up on podcasts. So I hope you are all well and happy knitting. Until next time, bye!